So all of us are wearing black. I think that's like the theme. Yeah.
The black one.
Yeah. Color coordinated.
Yeah.
So this is our first panel for today, and I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Dr. Erhan Turan, who is the co-founder and CTO of Simularge. Simularge provides engineering simulation solutions to its clients. It's a startup company creating software solutions for technology makers and the manufacturing industry. Their goal is to make life easier for them by enabling virtual testing of machine parts in an economical, fast, and collaborative way.
Exactly.
Yeah? That's great. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Erhan. Next is Egan Bullitt.
Yeah.
That's Egan Bullitt, yes, who is the ex-CTO and tech consultant for Simple. Simple is a real-time marketing and CRM automation engine based on real-time analytics. And Bullitt also just told me that his name means cloud, Bullitt. So it's perfect that we have him as a moderator, as a panelist. And our final panelist is Heriton Enter, who is co-founder and CTO of Beat Technology. Beat Technologies develops state-of-the-art IoT solutions to fully digitize commercial building operations, save costs, and improve overall occupant well-being. They utilize proprietary and patented technology in combination with artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms to analyze a building's climate variables such as carbon dioxide, temperature, humidity levels to proactively manage and autonomously adapt to behavioral comfort patterns. Yeah? Okay, thank you so much for joining us. So our first panel, what you notice is that they're all CTOs, right? So we want to understand, what do CTOs think when they're building products, when they're building their technology stack? So most of my questions will be on how do you make decisions? How do you make technology decisions, right? So all of you have your mics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Yep. Cool. So my first question would be, what are the top 3 things you think of when making any technology decision that impacts your business? You want to?
I can start. So I need to make sure that every time I select a tech, I need to understand it. I mean, my background is mechanical engineering. Even if I did some supercomputer simulations for engineering purposes, I need to understand the technology. So it's kind of overwhelming right now because there are so many stacks, let's say, so many new languages. So time to time, I'm kind of confused. So whenever I get confused, I'm just go back to my core business. And it's related to scientific computation. And in scientific computation, Fortran or C++ is the main driver. So when I do a decision, I just try to understand whether this new technology is compatible with this old, let's say, old school technology. So most of the time I pick Python because it's kind of suitable with those old packages, and it just helps me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for you, whether you understand it, whether it's suitable for your business, that's
right.
What you make it.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, it's actually kind of same. Like the technology need to be sustainable to select it.
What do you mean sustainable?
For example, I can select a C or C++ to, let's say, program a microprocessor. But can I find someone that can program the C++ easily?
Okay.
So it's a little bit problematic in that sense. So you need to select a suitable technology that both comply with the need of your business and also at the same time with the human resources abilities.
Right. Whether you can hire the right people,
Exactly.
that's also important for you. That's how you make your technology decision. What about you?
For me, the important thing is elasticity.
Yeah.
I mean, when I need to scale my environment, the technology let me do it. Also, my cloud provider let me do it because we are processing in real time data. We fetch the data from our e-commerce, especially our e-commerce companies. When they have a Black Friday, we collect too many data, so huge data. So some days we need to extend our environments 5 times or 10 times more. So being elastic is the most important factor for me.
Yeah, whether it's elastic, whether it's scalable, all of that, right? Rapidly. Okay. So speak to us a little bit about your technology stack. What are you using internally? I think other founders and developers would like to understand all these cool companies, what is their technology stack like, right? So if you could help us understand.
Right. I mean, as an operating system, we are just using Linux, starting from Ubuntu, let's say 16. I don't really upgrade it to 18 right now. I'm going to wait. In terms of the database, I'm just using MySQL. It's really simple for me to use. We were using PHP because when I was graduating from university, but PHP only. Okay. Then I noticed that PHP is not really secure enough. So I'm currently converting to Flask, the Python-based web server. And it's also useful because we are creating small apps for specific industries. And in Flask, I can easily create a new application. I can deploy it into one of the droplets and let it flow easily. So it's just Python, and also in the core business that I said, Fortran and C++ is still there with some parallel processing opportunities.
Okay,
right.
Great.
Yeah.
What about you?
On our the building digitalization is where you need the technologies from web end to high tech to the communication protocols based on the 70s or 80s. So it's a very mixed area where you need to use the very small piece of software from different languages and the very heavy language as well. So it depends on the need, but we heavily use the Python. Also in the Linux-based systems, we have our own Linux-based devices actually, where we compile our own kernel as well, because it's needed. Otherwise, you need a lot of huge resource, compute resource, the hardware, so it increases the costs. So therefore, we stick with the small Linux-based systems, and we use the database as well, like MongoDB, Cassandra, and those kind of actual scalable things. But we actually, in overall, we are agnostic on the technology sense. For example, we do not use any Java, not because we do not like the Java, because Java is not our fit on the job. Maybe it's another fit on another job. So you need to be agnostic on selecting the technologies, and you need to use the best technology where you can, again, compatible with the team and the business needs.
Yeah. Okay. What about you?
As programming language, we use mainly Java. Currently, we use its latest version. A little bit Python already installed and running. Databases are mainly we use Apache Cassandra. As I said before, we scale data more and more, so Cassandra is very suitable to split and distribute your data when it is increased. On the other hand, we have running some nodes of MySQL server as a database, structured database engine, and we use Apache Storm as a complex event processing engine. We call every single request as event, and we process it, query it in Apache Kafka, then reprocess it, then reprocess for insight to create insights, and to reprocess to create small size of JavaScripts to send back to browsers and create some pop-ups. I know anyone like it, but
Wow, that's
marketers,
a lot of
marketers like it. Especially we follow devices to analyze the behavior of our customers, and we try to find their next best offer. So data is so critical for us. And we use Redis for in-memory caching. So all the infrastructure runs on CentOS Linux. CentOS especially is a lovely tool for enterprise companies, especially they like Red Hat, but CentOS similar Red Hat. So our tech stack contains from these technologies.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Also, how do you make the decision about your cloud infrastructure? Like, there are so many cloud providers. How do you choose your cloud provider? If you could speak to your experience. Also, some of you have had some experience on DigitalOcean. If you could speak to your experience on DigitalOcean as well.
Well, DigitalOcean is my first cloud provider.
Okay.
And still the last, maybe, cloud provider.
How did you discover DigitalOcean?
Yeah, a friend of me suggested to use DigitalOcean. There was also Walter as an option, but I picked DigitalOcean mainly because the tutorials were really useful.
Okay.
I mean, there were some technologies that I was not understanding because I gave a break like 5 years doing something else. I was designing engine aircrafts for some time, and in between the technology developed so quickly that I was really kind of old. So running the tutorials really helped me to pick DigitalOcean as the first place. And I'm really satisfied with DigitalOcean. Currently, the main problem that I'm facing there is we are selling B2B. So some of the companies are using their own cloud infrastructure. So there was one company they would like to use Microsoft Azure. So that is a challenge for me right now because I'm really pleased with DigitalOcean. It's really simple, and that's the main ingredient. But I might use a hybrid solution maybe, and some of the software could be deployed onto their own platform, but maybe the interface or front end could be still be running on DigitalOcean. So simplicity, community was the main driver for me to pick DigitalOcean.
Okay. What about you?
Actually, the question is like you need to approach from different perspective. I mean, it depends on the size of the team, actually, because if you're an enterprise, then you need a lot of role permissions, authentications, any kind of permission system, actually, and the cloud infrastructures need to give that. But if you're a relatively small team, like a startup was, you need to act very fast with the very fast system, actually. I don't need to wait for, let's say, 20 minutes to just update or refresh of a port opening or firewall update. So I need to be really fast. I don't have time. I know some companies who have even 3 people to just manage the Jira software, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, we don't need that. We need to be fast. Actually, this is where the DigitalOcean comes fast, actually. And this is for company side, actually, from my old times, back on my high school ages, I was using there was a time where you use the hosting services, where you use the reseller services. You couldn't have even access to SSH to Linux terminals as well. And at those times, I remember the first time I have seen the DigitalOcean, actually, the droplet opened in like just 50 seconds. I was like, wow. It's like, that's the cloud service I need to use. So therefore, actually, I'm a quite fan of the DigitalOcean in that sense, and we're happily using right now.
Great. What about you, again?
For me, simplicity is so important because our life is so complex by creating our apps, designing and adapting business requirements. Also, our competitors change the rules, and we have to adopt, and we have to find new things. So our life is so complex, and the outsourced channels, outsourced things must be as much as simplicity. It must be simple because we don't have enough time to manage the stakeholders and we don't have enough time to learn their panels, their API. So I can honestly say I have never used DigitalOcean's API because I haven't needed, because panel is so easy to use, easy to manage. I can easily select my droplets and increase the sizes. A few minutes later, it's already done. So it's a good thing for me. And as I mentioned before the Black Friday, just spending a few minutes increasing your whole capacity 5 times is so incredible.
Yeah, makes sense. At some point, we'll also open it up for your questions. So if you have questions, keep them on top of your mind. And those of you who are active on Twitter, it's #HatchNing if you want to tweet out anything, right? Also, we'll start with you again this time. As an early stage company, as an ex-CTO, right? How do you think about scale? Do you think about, a lot of times because you're starting something, you want to build fast, but you also want to build for scale so that as you grow big, it kind of sustains. So how do you make that kind of decisions?
For the initialization of your company, by when you create the MVP, I mean, simplicity is so important, but then scalability is so important for you. When you have traffic, your customers wants to trust the environment, trust the software you build. So I can say currently we are in reliability section because we have too many enterprise level customers, and we always measure our workloads, utilizations. So we actively create some buffers to let any customer use the resources when they need, and if we need more, we can increase or decrease back. So that lets us spend our budget effectively. So for me, the reliability of DigitalOcean makes me feel in safe zone.
Okay, got it.
In the scalability part, actually, the scalability is one thing you need to have on your mind from the day first. So you have to design things based on the scalability. But on the other hand, you need to be careful about that. If you too much put effort and energy into the scalability work design, then you can stuck on the scalability and you cannot build a product.
Yep.
And product needs to be working at least. So as a rule of thumb, I always use this technique. Like I always keep the scalability on my mind, but I always iterate based on the functional needs of the customer. So always iterate.
Okay.
Always see how the customer approaches the scalable your product, and then calculate what is the scalability. For example, we are talking about all IoT and the software, but on the other hand, from our side, we have the buildings. So buildings have sensor systems, cables, a lot of different entities, a lot of different vendors, and it's not like the IT world.
Yeah.
Basically, you can find Google everything, and in every month, I try to Google something, and in at least 2 times, I came across with no result found. So you need to be thinking about these infrastructure things before you start the process, actually. So therefore, scalability is a tricky, I can say. Like we always think on the backup of our mind, but in the same time, we always iterate as a MVP.
Yeah, so for you, it's a balance,
balance.
between building fast and thinking about scale. What about you, Erhan?
So our business is kind of different. I mean, if I have 100 customers, then I'll be having a very good business running. So, and the reason is that whenever I need a service, the service just calls 30 CPUs or 64 CPUs just to complete one simulation. And that means just one droplet. So whenever a customer needs a new simulation, I can just create one droplet easily using the API, and that's it. I mean, it's not like I'm going to serve 100,000 users at the same time. So I'm kind of lucky because the business is very different.
Okay.
But at the beginning, I also tried to understand what kind of a framework should I use just to make scalability easy. Then I said, it's really time consuming, so I just focus on finding the product market fit.
Okay.
Then you can just focus on scaling.
Got it. You're lucky in that way, right? Your business allows you to. My next question is kind of very important, right? A lot of times when CTOs, they sometimes want to build everything in-house. They say, we'll just hire more people and build our technologies. Or whether you should buy from readily available services in the market. So between building your own technologies in-house versus buying what is available off the shelf in the market, how do you make some of those technology decisions?
Yeah.
Anybody can go first.
Let me go first.
Okay.
So basically, when you're selecting this technology, there's a point where you need to decide on where to buy and where to develop. So when we are selecting this, I always use this technique. Like I said previously, I always came across the situation where I found no search result found. So at that point, that's the point where I need to develop something in-house. On the other hand, if I need to buy something, then I look for the cost opportunities and if it limits my feature scalability. Because if I really connected something and it really limits my business, then I need to be careful on that, because it's maybe create an opportunity right now for me, but in the 1 year, it will be maybe 30 or 40% of my cost, and I cannot get without it, right? So it needs to be balanced. So therefore, I guess it's again a balance question. So this is the point where we look at, like, if you can build it, and there's no choice, build it, and if you can buy it, then just buy it.
Okay, got it.
Okay, for me, if something is part of my core business, I prefer to develop it in-house, but all the other things can be outsourced because anybody in their homes produce their electricity. We are, as person, in our daily life, we outsource almost everything of ours, such as electricity or water or housekeeping, etc. So we know outsourcing in our lives. So something is not part of my core business, I'm ready to outsource it. If I need to buy it or rent it, just we analyze our ROI, return of investment. So I create a decision. Do I need to buy it or create it?
Yeah.
Core business is protected, and we think about it before outsource it.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, what about you, Erhan?
Agreed. I mean, for core competency, we just do it by ourselves. I mean, I do the programming all the time, again, Fortran or C++. But for front-end development, for instance, we try to do outsourcing or hiring people for short durations, like 6 months or 9 months, depending on the project. At first, programming in front-end was really like a hobby for me. I was really enjoying it, but at some point, it made me nervous because there's a project deadline and you need to meet the deadline, right? So that means it's not a hobby anymore. It's kind of a problem. So at that point, I decided to use people from outside, outsourcing. Then it makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that's so interesting. We have 3 CTOs, and each of their ways of thinking about making those decisions whether to build internally or buy is so different. So at this point, I want to ask if there are any questions from the audience. Yeah, okay.
So what was the biggest friction that you experienced with your cloud provider? I mean, do you have any downtime just because of your service provider and cloud provider? And I know, what was the biggest issue that you had?
I can reply it. Every company have an SLA, service level agreement, and no one provides 100% SLA. So that means sometimes something can go wrong. So we had some downtimes. When you have downtime, you create an incident report for your customers and give some detailed information to them about the outage. So they are ready for their customers also, because everyone rents the other services and creates a product or server for their own customers, and the other rent his service and provides his customers. So it's a complicated service-oriented world. If something goes wrong, many parts can be affected from it. So if you have an outage, I advise to be open for your customers and say about the problem and create a ticket for the service provider.
Actually, in our side, like, it's basically not for, I don't have any, like, 1 million people who is looking for a web page. So it's an IoT business, it's basically machines talking. So the SLA is basically on the sensor level. On the sensor level, actually, DigitalOcean does the great job, but the sensor network do not rely on the cloud services too much, because we have our own gateways, which is basically a PC, Linux-based PC. So we have some sort of cross communication between these. So we create the balance between these PCs and the cloud services, where the sensor, we need to assure that sensor somehow send the data and we get it. So it's based on a network where our own network and the cloud provider. It's a merger.
I didn't really face any problem so far, but we have a backup server. Whenever the customers call us, sometimes they do, but they just forget their password. So we just provide a recovery email to them automatically, and then it's all good. I mean, in the meantime, if I have some problems, I just switch the backup into the backup server. I just save the day. So far, so good.
Yeah. Okay.
I would like to add some more information. For instance, we load our scripts asynchronous mode to the web pages, so if service goes down, our e-commerce customers have no effect, just their marketing scenarios won't run, but the navigation of the customers will not affect of it. So you can reduce the effect of the outage by creating asynchronous load mechanism, and on the other hand, we have some software-based robots. I mean, they send some complex requests to our APIs from different cloud providers to DigitalOcean and ask some questions. Then if they have response, everything goes okay. If they cannot receive the expected result, we have a channel, its name is Uptime, and send a message, something is going wrong. And we know there is something is going wrong. So creating an autonomous health check mechanism also helps you to know before your customers inform you. You can know the problem and find the core reason of it.
Yeah, as far as I understand, it's inevitable to get rid of all of the downtime issues and issues. As for trees experiences, I understand that it's always good to have backup servers.
Yeah.
It depends on your business model, especially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To diminish the problems.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Samit. Samit himself is a CTO for a company. Pricing, yes. We have the T-shirt there. All right.
My competitor.
Yeah?
My competitor.
Oh, really? Okay. That's why he wants to know what are your challenges, probably. Okay, my last couple of questions here. Do you have, for both of you, I wanted to ask, particularly because you're also CTOs, but you're also founders of your company. So how do you kind of balance that role? Is it easy, or do you face that as a challenge? Sometimes you have to put on your CTO hat, and sometimes you have to put on your founder hat.
I mean, it's kind of difficult because if you're a CTO, you're a technical person, right? And a technical person is really likely to jump into technical issues. I mean, you see, I mean, they are explaining very complicated issues, and they like to do technical work. But sometimes you need to pivot easily, change directions. So I'm having difficulties to come up with the best solution. But then my co-founder, she's also there, really helps me a lot because she can give me a clear, let's say, direction. Then we decide, okay, I really want to do this new installation, but let's go with this old version, and that's good.
Okay.
So it's kind of difficult for me because I'm trying to do more technical stuff, but I need to be quick. So it's kind of time consuming if you just stick to CTO role.
Okay, got it. What about you, Harithan?
Well, it's always hard.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you always need to be some sort of backup CEO, backup CFO,
Okay.
backup COO. And you need to switch the tasks between jumping through one very important meeting to some sort of in the very -2 basement of a building and just fix something maybe the team is lacking of. So it's always some sort of, I mean, it's about the mentality. If you are able to switch things in your mind and it does not disturb you in your life, then it's okay. I mean, I don't feel too much pain to do that task. I mean, I enjoy it actually, basically, because I enjoy the meetings with who have no knowledge of the technology, because it's a very funny thing to play with. So in the other hand, I also love the development of the technology. So it's a balance between all of this. I mean, like, but it's hard. And if you do not like it, it's a little bit hard to pursue this job, actually.
Okay, got it. Final question, we'll start with you again. Any advice for CTOs and founders in the audience? If you had to just give them one advice, probably what would you tell them?
Okay, my advice can be design and run more autonomous things, such as testing your environment. Is it working as expected? Or before something happened, you can create load tests and stress tests to your environment to measure if the traffic will be increased, what happens, and you can find the bugs and fix them. So you may not receive any notification from your robots. Something goes wrong when you are in a panel like that. So preparing before something happened is a good practice for me. So you can run your technical environment as expected and create relationship with people, find new problems and solve it. I mean, you can be innovative to increase the capacity of your product. So just being prepared is a good thing.
Okay.
That's my advice, yes.
Yeah. Actually, I agree with them. The simulations need to be run. I mean, any kind of environment can be simulated. Both of whether it's an IoT product, whether it's an e-commerce product, they all can be simulated. So simulation environment is very important. Even you can hire only one person who can all build up the simulation environments, which will make it very easy for your job. And on the other hand, the selection of the team is very important. You need to have the people in your team who believes in you, who have the characters. Then you can look for the talent. Talent is always the third part. The first thing is if the story both of you believe is the same in the team, and you have to share the same passion. If these are not aligned, then you go into the troubles and the problems. You probably, as a CTO, trying to figure out something on a much more vision scale, but maybe someone is not sharing with you the same passion, is looking for something way else. So it creates a collision. Yeah. So therefore, it has to be aligned.
Yeah, and that's something we often kind of overlook, right? The hiring the right fit for the team, all of that.
I would say start small. Don't really make your project very large right at the beginning, but you need to start as well because it starts small. First start, and then don't do assumptions. Exactly. Both technical and non-technical. The technical, you might say, hey, I'm going to just install this package. I'm going to attach this service to that server, and it's going to run smoothly. No. As they said, I mean, you need to do testing beforehand. Also, non-technical advice, because there are also entrepreneurs here. I mean, some people want to start their own business. Don't do assumptions about your customers as well. You need to talk with them. We pivoted last year. Even if we thought our solution was the best solution, I still think our solution is the best solution. But the market was conservative. Okay, they just want to prefer the expensive product instead. Then we pivoted, and that pivot is only based on our interactions with our customers. They told us their pains, and then we just pivoted our services to resolve their pains, and it helped us a lot. So don't do assumptions; just go ahead and test it.
Yeah, I loved what you said. Don't make assumptions and talk to your customers more often. Yeah. Any last questions? If you can just raise your hand, we'll get you a mic. Cool. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. Can we have a huge round of applause for all our panelists, Dr. Erhan Turan, Hayrettin, and Ekin Bulut. Thank you. Thank you so much.